completely different from each other. And I'm just starting in 1992. Was a major change in my career, because since I took civil engineering as my basic degree, and as Asif has said, my basic lessons I learned from Gauri Baker in architecture. And I worked with him in 1984, worked with Cosford, Nirmiti Kendra, and various agencies. Then I decided to take a break. In 1991, 92, I decided to not to do the typical Baker style architecture. So this was one of the projects which I did in 1992, which was a major change, but I could not deviate from his approach completely. But this was a turning point, as I said, and it was the design of the residence for Mr. Mammootty in Chennai. And this, most of those days you used to take prints and you did not store. This is not the digital era. So I don't have many photographs of the project. House is still there. So this was when Mammootty and I am discussing on the day of the day when the door is being placed. The foundation is already done. The bricks have just come. So we are just standing, and normally all Keralites give a special importance to the day when the door is being placed. And how I did the thing, it was very accident. As I said, it was a welcome change. One day in 1992, one day morning, I received a telephone call from Shyama Prasad, who has directed many movies later. At that time, Shyama Prasad was working in Doordarshan. I did his residence about 3 years before that. So 89, I think I did his residence, which was a small residence. He's no longer living there. It was a 800 or 850 square feet residence, which I did for Shyama Prasad in 89. Shyama Prasad was very young. He might be my age. So at that time, he just did this small house for him, small family. His son was there, who was very young at that time. And that's how I did. So Mammootty heard about Shyama Prasad's house. So that's how. And the reason for hearing is, again, Ranjit, who is a famous film director nowadays. At that time, he was a script writer. So it was Ranjit who told to Mammootty that there is a designer or architect called Benny Kuriakose, and Mammootty was looking for an architect to design his house. And so Shyam Prasad called me and said that Mammootty wants to get the house designed by you. And he said, Mammootty will call you in 5 minutes. And immediately I got a call. I was in Trivandrum. I was living in Trivandrum those days. I get a call from Mammootty saying that, why don't you come to Chennai? So he said, take the next day flight and come. And I took the next day's flight and went to Chennai. And I went to the shooting site. The shooting was going on for the film Johnny Walker. From the airport, Ranjit came to receive me from the airport. So Ranjit described how Mammootty is and why he wants me to design the house. I mean, I was 30 years old. At that time. So we just went to the shooting site. It was in a cathedral in Chennai, Santo. Morning scene was shot there. And afternoon was some stunt scene which was shot. So after every shot, I was given a seat next to Mammootty. I used to sit there. After every shot, Mammootty used to come and talk to me about his dream house. And he said that, I want a house like this. For example, he said, I want natural materials to be used. I don't want marble to be used. I don't want glass to be used. I don't want people to say that Mammootty constructed a huge house. I want people to say that Mammootty constructed a beautiful house. So this was, he was just talking about his dream, because I know as a film actor, I mean, Mammootty was a superstar in, it's the same position. He used to reign even in 1992. I mean, you should see 30 years, 28 years or 30 years down the line, he is still the superstar, megastar or superstar. So he just used to talk. I was very scared at that time, because to design the house for Mammootty, uh, and what he is telling, all the entire crowd around all those things. So at lunch, only thing I remember telling him is that I said I want to see the site. During lunch interval, after having lunch, we had the lunch at the shooting location itself. After lunch, he took me to the site, and on the way he was selling, I could not get a bigger plot, so I bought two plots, one behind the other. So it is a very narrow plot. So I would like to have a courtyard in my house, but since the house plot is very narrow, I don't know whether I'll be able to get a courtyard in my house. So that was what he said. He took, and after that, again, we went to the shooting site. And then he also mentioned me one more thing. He said, my wife has a lot of ideas about the house, much more than me. And so I would like you to please come to the house. So this was in 1992. So I went to the house. It was at around 10:30. Those were the kind of shooting schedules which used to go at that time. Went to his house at 10:30, had dinner with him. And after that, he showed me around the full house. And he and his wife, Suluchechi, both of them came and started talking about their dream house. And so he said, I need 4 bedrooms and a projection theater. So that is what he said. So I I was just listening, and they said each bedroom has to be self-sufficient, and so this is how, I mean, the briefing was given to me. They said they have a lot of furniture which they have collected over the years. Chechi has gone, and even now she collects furniture. She goes and collects a lot of furniture. So they had all these kinds of furniture in different, collected from different places. And even during the construction, also we did a lot of houses. So this was during the construction stage. So many of the things which I've learned from Baker, because that was the only thing I knew, to do exposed brickwork. So I brought in stone. One of the changes which I made in the house was to bring in stone as a very expressive element. And I brought in little bit elements of, say, the bay windows, which Baker also used to give. And but he said, I want a house which is very, has a lot of features of the Kerala architecture. So in 1992, the kind of houses which used to come up in Kerala was flat roof houses. Even if they have sloping roofs, it was just sloping onto two sides, the kind of houses. So in 1992, to build a house like this in Chennai, and this is taken during the construction stage, it was a very, very drastic step. And so we did the construction, and this is the completed house. What you see in front of the house is a great point, which was shown in the elevation. We planted a mango tree in front of the house. And at that time, the house was around 6,150 square feet. At that time, by that standard, 6,150 square feet is quite big. Now people build 10,000 square feet, 12,000 square feet, 15,000 square feet, even 20,000 square feet. I mean, this is the kind of houses which people build. We just discussing at way. There were no detailed drawings made for the house. Only the plan section and the basic elevation, which was necessary to get the building approval from there. But every detail was discussed in detail with Mammootty and his Suduchechi. And Dulkar, who is the famous leading actor now, might have been in the first standard or second standard at that time. School. He was just going to the school at that time. I was based out of Kerala. So every 10 days or every week, every 10 days, I used to come to Chennai. And I used to stay for 3 or 4 days uh, in with working on, because as I told you, there were no contractors involved in the project. The masons were taken from Kerala, the carpenters came from Kerala, the painters and polishers came from Kerala. Every labor, it was brought from Kerala, and they did the construction. So every material, Mammootty's manager, Mr. Babu, was there. He bought all the construction materials. And so it was like every week the labor was paid. The one thing I could notice, although Mammootty was a very busy actor, while he goes for film shooting, he used to stay at around 2.5 kilometers from the construction site. So he used to come in the morning, have a round. Then if he goes to his house for lunch, again he will come at lunchtime. At night, when he finishes the shooting, even if it is 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock, he will come to the site. And not only he will come to the site, he will ask the masons or carpenters, no, make a black tea for me. So the Mammootty whom I experienced, I interacted with him quite a bit at that time, was that, I mean, not the person whom the head weight or any of these things is, which people talk about him now. Once I asked him, everybody says that you have a lot of head weight. And then his answer was that, have I shown any head weight to any of you? Even to a mason or a carpenter at the site, he did not show any head weight. So I was using Baker's principles, but I tried to introduce, as I said, stone. The window panes that you see here was done for the Mammootty's house. The arches were used. The entire flooring is done with clay tile flooring, which Laurie Baker also used to do. Only the one veranda in the front used to have granite flooring, and this was the porch. And the e-board, which is highly detailed, is taken from some of the traditional buildings in Chennai itself. What you can do, that's the front veranda, the front sit out that you see. Mammootty used to have 90% of his meetings in his veranda. In this veranda, he used to lie down in this easy chair, and everybody, he met everybody by sitting in this chair. So so he used to like this place, and after the house was designed and he occupied it, he said, Benny, I like every part of the house. I sometimes sit in one place, sometimes I sit in the back veranda. We try to create a courtyard like feeling. So he said, each of the space was created with the different features. And there was a lot of things. This house, the house construction still became famous because it was Mammootty's house, and it came up in a prominent area within the city. And I just remember, while the construction was going on, a foreigner who used to live nearby saw the house construction, and he liked it. And he used to watch the construction. He used to come and see the site. And when the house was almost nearing completion, he came in and came to the house. He doesn't know who Mammootty is. So I was discussing with Mammootty on the details of the house. And he came and asked, will you give this house for rent? Because he wanted to take this for rent. And Mammootty's answered question to him is that, will you be able to pay the rent for it? So second, the foreigner asked, how much rent you want? And Mammootty's answer was that he will not be able to afford the house for rent. So this kind of thing, there were a lot of personal experience which had a very small detail. This is the front door of the house, and Manichitrathazhu movie has not got out. At that time, we could not. Mammootty was very specific that he would like to have a Manichitrathazhu. And there was no Manichitrathazhu. Now you can get a Manichitrathazhu in many of the hardware shops. But at that time, we couldn't get it. This was handly crafted by a blacksmith in Kollam district. And at that time, we paid the labor cost we paid was 7,500 rupees. There are a lot of intricacies in this coming. It is not very seen in the photograph was there. Because I showed various design of the doors and front doors to him. He did not like it. Finally, we just made the typical door with the timber planks. The old Anjali wood was used. No teak was used. The old Anjali wood. So what you see is the old Anjali wood. I mean, most of the timber for the house was made with buildings from teak from buildings which have been demolished. So we try to do. So we try to be very eco-friendly even at that time in doing those things. Although we reworked on the timber, that is what we did. So there were a lot of French doors. This is again part of the courtyard. There is different verandas for the house at different places, because the front veranda, the problem is that Mammootty is a busy person. There is, when he is in the house, a lot of people come, but at the same time, he told me right at the beginning, my privacy is important. My privacy of my family members is important. So try to bring that into the design. So what we did was that there was other verandas which the family members could use. The front garden can be used only by the, I mean, when you, in most of the houses, you find beautiful garden in the front, but those gardens are enjoyed by the security man and the drivers. So here we try to create a garden on the side, which I will show you the pictures, the grills. This is the kitchen. And when the kitchen was designed, I still remember when the kitchen was designed, Sulichechi was very particular that the kitchen should overlook the garden. And so this is one of the windows which overlooks the kitchen window from the kitchen which overlooks the garden. So the house is very unusual. A kitchen is very unusual because there were two kitchens, like in many other houses. One where Sulichechi does the cooking, and the other one where the servants do the cooking. And Mammootty, when Mammootty is around, is not outside. Cooking is done by Sulichechi. There are certain preparations, I mean, food habits which Mammootty has got. I mean, he starts eating. I mean, we used to have lunch together. Whenever I was in Chennai, we used to eat together. He starts eating with fish. Kurchi എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒരു വില കുറഞ്ഞ, so what is that kurchi mean, which is not very, I don't know what others call it in different parts of the thing, that he used to eat that fish and start with that, and a lot of vegetables and this thing, and that's how we start. So the kitchen was very particular, and in one of the things which we had done in the kitchen in the beginning was to have a bed in the kitchen, because people don't put a bed in the kitchen. So we put a bed in the kitchen, and Mammootty used to lie down, because even after the house was constructed, I used to be very much, I shifted to Chennai by then, so we could meet, I could meet them, and even after that, we had done so many projects for them. Even now I'm doing one project. So at that time, we just had the bed was there. And the thing was that while cooking is happening, Mammootty will come and sit in the bed or lie down in the bed, because that was the kind. So kitchen cared for that. I mean, for a very close family relationship. And we had two staircases as part of the design in the house. Two staircases. There was one staircase. The projection theater, home theater, I mean, not the home theater, it was quite large at that time. It was, the home theater concept has not come into picture in 1992 when the house was designed. So the theater was 16 feet wide and 64 feet long in the house. So it was quite a large theater we made in the Madras house. And we had, Mammootty has imported the equipments at that time, and we had a very, the movies were shown. So many of the people had to be taken to the, producers and directors, they will come. So Mammootty takes them into the first floor, into the projection theater. So since one of the things he told me is, I want to take care of the privacy of the family members, there was a separate staircase, very narrow staircase, 2 feet or 2.25 feet wide, to take the producers into the projection room. So from straight from the veranda into the foyer, they will go into the projection theater. And we made it very steep because if you take that staircase, Mammootty, after coming back from film shooting, etc., he can get into the master bedroom directly. And but in this case, it was not done. There was another staircase which, if he takes the second staircase, which was very comfortable, he will pass through his daughters and sons' bedrooms while going into the master bedroom. Because one of the things he told me, Benny, I'm very busy. I'm in shooting most of the time outside. I would like to spend time with the family, because Mammootty is a family man. And so we just took many of these factors into account, and we provided a place for dining in the kitchen. And the formal dining was a little bit far away from the kitchen. So Mammootty once casually asked, after doing all these things, he casually asked me, do I have to take an auto rickshaw to go from the kitchen to the dining room? It's only within a house. So he was very humorous, and that is what has happened. And this was we had all these doors made from the old houses which were demolished. We just converted. This was made with jackwood, and we just converted it into the front door and the gateway of the house, which has been made. So you can see the various single doors of the traditional houses being joined together. You can see. So there are a lot of these small elements which were very traditional brought into this, when many of the people were not thinking of it. Now you find the typical Kerala style houses there, but you have to think that it was done in 1992. But this is the Saksha, or the locking system. So even the main door had the Saksha. So many of these things were brought into the house. You can see the e-board. And this was the driver's quarters. The garage was below. The driver's quarters was upstairs. Because and there was the servants' quarters at the back of the house. And the detailing we did for the driver's quarters for the first floor, because at that time, he had about 3 cars. Now I think the number will be much more. And this was what the garden was done. And this swing was already they have collected. Sulijeji has collected the swing from, it's a Gujarati swing, and we painted it differently. And this was the side courtyard, side garden. The front garden is where the drivers and all those people stand. So the swing was put in. So the family members can still enjoy the outside space and the outside garden. And these two sculptures were done by the famous sculptor called Alex Chandy. He designed some terracotta sculptures and artwork in the house. And to separate the backyard, so this is the arch thing, and backside is the drying clothes and those areas. So there was this drying art, drying and this. So main garden, the courtyard, the side garden was separated from the backyard by this arched opening. And as I said earlier, he used to be friendly. He knew the names of most of the leading construction workers doing at masons and carpenters working at that time. So this was one of the photographs which was taken. The other interesting part, you see, Mammootty is one of the things, and the close association you get with the clients. So yeah, I told you that I was living in Kerala at that time, and my wife, I've got married by then. Even before started doing the house, and my son was born. And my wife has never seen Mammootty's house. So as soon as the housewarming was over, my wife told that I would like to see the house. So I had my old Maruti 800 car at that time. So I drove the car with my son and my wife to Chennai. And we left Kerala early morning. We reached by around 6 o'clock. I had booked a room in the hotel. So I just came to Mammootty's house because in the evening. So, and I told, they asked me where I'm staying. So I said, I booked the room in the hotel. I'll be going to the hotel and staying. And then said, why you are booked the room in the hotel? You can stay in this house. And then I said, no, we are staying for a few days since we have driven and come here. We'll see Chennai a little bit more. And then Mammootty, I said, no, we will stay in the hotel. Mammootty said, if you stay in the hotel, I will consider it as a disgrace. So we were forced to stay in the house as guests of Mammootty. So see, the image which Mammootty has outside or anything is very different. We used to, I mean, every mason, every carpenter, everybody. I mean, he used to come and eat food, or he take black tea or black coffee from what the workers are cooking. So he did not, I mean, the position. Even there, the mason, some of them, he will even used to go for the second show movies. So some of the masons are told he will come to the site. Please come with me to the preview show or than this. He has taken, I mean, some of the head masons and head carpenters, he has taken them for the movies. I used to go with him to many times. And this is, my son is being carried by Mammootty. The landscaping work was not done. They have just occupied the house. The landscaping was done after they occupied the house. And that relationship, why I'm telling it is that it is important to be working in close liaison with the users of the building or the house owners, which we are telling. I just try to tell some of the aspects. There are so many design aspects which has been considered in the house, and we still keep the relationship. Last year, I mean, this Mammootty came to my Kerala house at night after driving for 1.5 hours from Kochi, and so this is a photograph taken at that time when we were I mean, he visited my house. This relationship with the house owners is very, very important. Even after 20 years, there are many cases where I've done projects for two generations, and this is that. Now, one of the problems with the modern movement, which has happened, is that it could have moved in a. See, many of the modern architects like Le Corbusier and Frank Lloyd Wright, especially, I mean, Le Corbusier said that the apartments or the big multi-storied buildings or the modern architecture should be built in the middle of a forest. And they were advocating for a, so Corbusier has written in 1920s, late 1920s and early 1930s that 85% of the cityscape should be forest and only 15% should be built up. What has happened in practical? 15% was left as forest or open spaces, 85% was built up. That is what we say. What has happened in our architecture, that social content in architecture has been drained away. That is, the human content of the architecture has been made. And now everybody says that architects and thinkers, there are a lot of books which has been written on the failure of the modern architecture with its tower blocks and apartments and shopping malls and housing layouts. They are unsuitable from the social and cultural and environmental point of view. Many of these buildings, there are many cases where the multi-storied buildings are being demolished, not because they have become structurally unsound. They are structurally sound, still people can live it, but socially it has become unviable or this thing. But for the early people like Corbusier, it was not, they did not see it like that. But there was a dilution which has happened. The followers of Corbusier did not follow many of the objectives. If you read the original writings of Corbusier, you will see that Corbusier was advocating architecture of a uh, different style or not style, different kind of architecture he was just doing. I was just trying to do that. We have to learn from many of the mistakes. For example, I just put dying malls of America inside America's dead shopping malls. Architecture professor explains why malls are dying. Dead mall series, landmark mall, empty mall of America, Minneapolis. You can just read through the nest. Just Google YouTube, that dying malls of America. Malls are dying. More than 20% of malls in US are lying vacant. I'm not joking. You can study, there are a lot of studies done. But we are still building malls. I mean, you can still see Chennai, if you know the city, the Chennai, there is a mall called Spencer Plaza. 20 years, 25 years ago, when I came 20 years ago, it was a landmark building. Everybody used to visit Spencer Plaza, but now it is dying. It is died already. You are not, nobody wants to put up a shop there. If you just take in Kochi, if you know, Oberon Mall was the top mall. Everybody used to go to Oberon Mall. But I don't know now, hardly people go to the Oberon Mall. So why is it happening? This is, if I just Google, the thing. American malls are dying out. Retail complexes all over the US are being clobbered by store closures sweeping the country. Retailers announced that more than 8,600 closings so far in 2019. This is before Corona, nothing to do with Corona. And according to a report done by Credit Suisse in 2017, between 20 to 25% will close by 2022. So this is the kind of thing, but we are building the mall. So as young architects, we have to start questioning the kind of architecture which is coming up in our cities. Many of them are driven by other considerations. It has to be socially relevant. If your building, if your design is not socially relevant, you will become outdated. You will become easily will be taken over by the others. Now I want to take a completely different projects which we have done. This project is for the fishermen affected by the tsunami victims. You can see some architecture students, and I'm also sitting in the group. And we were discussing in front of a temple, which is fishermen, in a fisherman village. The person sitting in the center is the Meenavar Panchayat President, Fisherman Panchayat Community's Panchayat President. And we are just the first day when we land up in the village to do the design of their village. And we made the model houses. And we could have just designed one house, draw something and then do. So we, with a team of young architects, my office was ventured into this design, discussing with the villagers what kind of houses they want. We made the models. So you can see discussion going on various aspects. And we found that many of them did not know what architecture is, or they are architecturally illiterate. So we did we decided, we had to do 2,000 houses as part of this thing. We could easily be done with one house plan and multiplied by 2,000. Then it is the head of the contractor. We decided not to hand over the work to a contractor. That is one decision we took. And also we took a decision just like, I've done houses for many actors, big famous people, Nandan Nilekhani, Shobana, Gopal Gandhi. So many people, many of the top business people, top politicians, bureaucrats have done houses. So all these things, you should give the same consideration to a tsunami victim who is a fisherman. So we just decided that our office took a decision that we should individually customize each house, which was a very, very difficult. Nobody in the world has tried to do something like that. And many of the housing experts told me that he will not be able to complete the project. So this, what you see on the right-hand side top is we used to call it 24-hour coffee shop. That is the place we eat, where the food was cooked because there was a team of almost 100 people working on the project, 2,000 thing, consisting of engineers, architects, social workers, managers, and all those people. And what you see on the left-hand side top is our training center, which we built with mud or earth. And we used to have because we are dealing with 2,000 people, I did not want to take a risk. So I made the plans and we had discussion with so many people. We invited them, consulted. We used to call it experts consultation. This is Sandeep Virmani on the left-hand side, and Jayagopal from Inspiration from Kochi, and Vivek Anand, who was the CEO of the Fisherman Cooperative Society, which was involved in the construction. And the right-hand side, you can see some faculty from IIT, housing faculty. Professor M.K. Prasad, who was the pro-vice chancellor from Calicut University, environmentalist, Dr. M.P. Parameswaran, Dr. Benisri Mitra, and Daniel Smith is an architect from Switzerland. So we presented our plans because we did not want to match, because we were trying to do something which was not something which has been done before, or something which people have done. So we customized each house, which means that we have to allot the houses to each person. and 2,000 houses, not easy task, without contractors. Even at that time, 2,000 houses is like, at that time, project cost was 60 crores in 2004, 5. So 2005, it is like 500 crore project now. I mean, so it's a huge project which is there. And we decided that we will look at issues of equity, and so we decided gender the inequality should not be there. So we allocated houses in the name of the husband and wife. We did the layout, discussed with them. We redid the layout. I mean, we made the roads wider. And so these were the plans. I mean, summer houses were, I mean, roads being widened to 3.6 for vehicle entry, common area with children's space was formed. New road was planned along the canal. So we just replanned the whole village as part of it. As far as the new village is concerned, because some people lived in the old village, some people wanted to move into the new village, we tried the cluster layout and the grid layout. So we showed both. We were doing in two places, Tarangambadi, which is more like a town, 1,500 houses, and Chinnangudi were 500 houses, more than 500 houses. So both were, Chinnangudi was like a fisherman's village, entirely with fishermen. So we tried to do the new house with the typical layout. Our social workers team discussed with the community members. You can see them staying in these thatch sheds. What kind of houses? We did 7 options, 7 model houses were built, of which they can choose one. And there was a one-to-one discussion with them, with the models in our training center, which was there, where we explained the plan and the features. And they have to come and take part in a class. While the foundation is there, they have to come and take part in a class. While the brickwork, before the brickwork starts, they have to come and attend a class. Before the roof is cast, they have to come and attend a class. We kept the attendance and all those things, and so that we want the cooperation. This is that what I told, that training center which we built, one classroom with earth which we had built. And each of the house was customized. So if somebody wanted to know that they wanted to extend the house, we allowed the extension of the house. So why should we, if somebody wants from a bedroom, they want to build another, from the hall, they want to build another bedroom, why should we do a brickwork and then they have to break? So we left an opening. So the customization just happened. As somebody said, this is not the location of the staircase, we allowed it to happen. And somebody said, no, we don't want, we will bring our own doors, we allowed it to happen. And in this case, we asked them to give some land for the road compensation. We tried to give it on the other side. So some people wanted attached toilets, some people did not want attached toilets. So we just worked with them, customized each of the house. We had a database, individual site plans were made, and we minuted each of the meetings. And there was consultation with each family and their documentation. And there were strict quality control checks, which we did at various stages. As a result, what happens? Although it is a public housing project, money is not paid by the beneficiaries. And out of the 72 projects which happened in Tamil Nadu, except for our 2 projects, everywhere the houses were constructed, the lots were taken and the houses allotted. But we had to go with a different way. Here, the house had to be allotted because customization. So we could find that people had the ownership feeling. They wanted to do puja for each of their houses, and they come and do as part of it. They used to invite us, so there was a bonding which developed between my team and the beneficiaries team, which we tried to develop as part of it. We could find that so putting a door is a very auspicious thing in Kerala and in Tamil Nadu. I told you about Mammootty, that first photograph I showed was taken on the day when the front door was placed. I mean, that's the system in Tamil Nadu. Kerala also it is there. Tamil Nadu, it is very common. So this front door, they do pujas. They do the puja. In a public housing project, when they don't have a role to play, they don't do it. But here they had a role to play. So they brought their doors and they did the pujas. And we told them, you have to take care of the curing. You have to supervise the construction. Because engineers are not able to do, because construction is going on in 150, out of the 2,000 houses, 150 houses, one day construction will be going on. So we will not be able to supervise. If you have any complaints, you come and tell us, we will interfere. So they used to do the curing, because curing is one of the things which causes complaint. And we gave employment to the women, fisher women, to do the windows. I'm cutting short the process. We tried to see Muthulashmi or Velu or Murugan as individuals. The way my team, the design team treated them is the way we designed Mammootty's house. Just because they don't pay money, just because they are illiterate, we don't want. And we allowed them to choose the colors. Out of the 7 options, they could do. Some people can decide to have a front setback less, front setback more. We allowed them to happen. So these were some of the photos. We tried the alternate technology because we wanted the project to be sustainable. So this is the rammed earth which was used. We introduced the smokeless chula. The smokeless chulas is developed by Kerala Shastra Sahitya Parishad. Their integrated rural technology center in Mundur in Palakkad used to do this. We installed these chulas in every house. But before the construction started, we installed some samples in each of the houses. So we just did this. I've shown the photograph of the smokeless chula. It is, at that time, I remember the cost of the smokeless chula is 170 rupees. And the way it is introduction of the technology, we did not try to see it as constructing of a house. We try to improve their livelihood. Design should change the lives of the people. Design has to take that role. That is very, very important. And one of the things is the first meeting. I told you we used to have a meeting at the foundation stage. Before the foundation, they had to attend a meeting. If they don't attend a meeting, we don't start the next stage of their construction. So when they come for the first meeting, we boiled the milk in the training center. We had an outdoor kitchen set up there, and we asked all the women to light up and boil the milk. So we did that. So all these minute details which we did, we constructed ferrocement water tanks. Each of the house was given 1 water tank each, and that became the rainwater harvesting tank, because that area had a salt water in the ground. Drinking water was a major shortage in that area. We organized competitions, we had discussions, we took them to various places to show the top left-hand photographs, we took them to Puch to show the rammed earth wall construction, which is there. The left-hand side, bottom photograph showed we did competition, because these people have gone through. In Tarangambadi, 500 people died. In Chinnangudi, 125 people died. And this was a community who had undergone a trauma. We just involved the children, we just involved the youth, and we worked with them with our program. We did not want to give them just a house. We wanted to give them a home in which they are going to live forever. And that was the commitment. So you can see the construction which is coming up in a big way. And we showed them testing equipments, that how important it is to do the curing. We showed that is part of the training. Before the concrete slab is laid, we will be bringing them and showed 2 concrete blocks, one which has been cured and one which has not been cured, both taken on the same day. So we showed them what is the strength difference. So they realize. So in one of the earlier photographs, I showed how they are watering the construction site. They do. So, and we had fixed the ferrocement tank not after the construction. We gave it to the right at the beginning. So we avoided the PVC water tanks which the contractors use at the site. We had set up an exhibition in the model houses, telling the exhibition is bilingual, Tamil and English. We explain features of each of the house. We made sure that they learn about each of the plan and each of the features they read. Although they might not have taken a university degree or gone any university, they knew how to read and write. Literacy was there, or we helped them try to do. And we produced a construction manual. They should know about how to do construction. The basic lessons of construction, of how to use cement, concrete, what happens with the strength. So we produced a detailed construction manual. We published it in English, because we had developed these manuals as part of the training program for the engineers and architects. As I said, it was more than 100 people working on it. We had a grievance cell. We showed at each place what is the progress of the construction, why the construction, how many houses construction is going on. And every day it was like, this is a blackboard. So every day we can change the statistics so anybody can tell. So what is the statistics? And we exhibited the prices of the sand and cement and steel and everything outside our office. So we told them very clearly that if you can supply sand at a cheaper rate, we'll buy it from you. It was very transparent. This thing. And this is one of the meeting. It's highly decentralized. Because each cluster, you can see a meeting happening. at one of the clusters where women started talking about. I mean, these are fishermen. They're coming to meetings in large numbers. So as a result, they will do. And then the project. This is one of the photographs which were taken immediately after that. So after they occupied the houses, I mean, each one can do accordingly. And this is after 10 years, I visited the village. I mean, this was the, I mean, no compound walls in these photographs, but it has changed like this. You can't see the houses. They are grown trees, they are grown a lot of greenery. You can see the roads have been laid. You can see the houses. They are painted. They are made modifications. They are using the streets to dry fish and dry their grains. I mean, which shows the success of the project. Some people who had a little bit more money did solid construction with this, with the concrete prefabricated panels. These were the common places which we are given for the children's play areas. We found that some of those areas are not used much. I mean, some of the play equipments which we have installed are still there, and we can see the houses, and we could see that they have made extension to the houses, which is also do. And you can see houses like this, fancy houses, because you can't blame them, because the city people are doing like that. So a fisherman is naturally inclined towards doing these things. We couldn't stay in the village forever and work towards them, because we have to do the design and get into our next project. But we gave them the details, try to make them aware of the construction detail. And one of the houses like this, unrecognizable when I visited the houses after 10 years. I would just send the statement. Two books have been written about this project, and one of the books has been written by a German architect. She came and met me in my Chennai office, and what she says is just quoting from her book, we were lucky that this architect worked on our project. Many things are well done, and there are some things that could have been done much better. For example, the orientation of the bathroom and the toilet. They should not face the neighbor's house. We had to build compound walls. And then there is the quality of construction, which is in some cases poor, better, of course, than in many other. However, not always satisfying. Who I would like to build my house with? I would call this architect again. If he would like to plan a single small house, I would tell him about the toilet and the quality. But I think he goes for big projects in cities only. So I would call the mason. And this is the dilemma which faces the architect. We always say we don't have work, we don't have projects. You have to understand, even in US, only 2% of the buildings are designed by architects. If you take the Indian statistics, only 1% or 0.5% of the buildings which are coming up in India are designed by architects. Who are designing the rest of the 91.5% houses? I think 80% will be done by the masons. Another 10% or 12% will be done by the engineers. Why have this situation reached? Are we sitting in a kind of elite മലയാളത്തിൽ പറഞ്ഞ പോലെ ചില്ലു കൊട്ടാരത്തിലാണോ നമ്മൾ ഇരിക്കുന്നത്? Are we sitting in a glass box? Are we alienated from the society? That is what it is there. I mean, this message, this what this mason has told the German architect, I've just quoted from the book which she has written, is something which is very, very important. I think if you do the design in a proper manner, we need 10 times the number of architects which are going to come up for the city. But are we able to cater to these design requirements? If design changes life, if design changes the lifestyle of the people, if design can do so much, design is very powerful. And that is what the youngsters, and as a firm, of course, we do for the one side, we do for the rich. We have always make sure that we do for all kinds of people. And we still do try to keep the balance in our practice. And that is, you can call it corporate social responsibility of our office, but we still try to keep the balance. And that is what makes us, as I told you, I don't have a degree in architecture, but we do all kinds of projects. We do master plans. We do huge projects. I am able to do these things because of the approach that we follow. I mean, even governments are willing to read. I mean, if the government advertises for the project saying that we want architects, I won't be able to apply because I mean, I've not tried to cover up that fact. But the government, I've done so many government projects for Tamil Nadu government and Kerala government and advise many other governments, UNESCO, UNDP, advise. So all these things we just do because we have a concept, we have some ethics, we have a philosophy which we want. I mean, and we want to get rid of it. My advice to you all in masters, you will all have jobs, but get out of the boxes. Try to do, you will get projects. If I did not study anything, but I was able to do. I'll do one more project very quickly. This is a project which is very near to your place, Institute of Palliative Medicine. Now, this project, I'll tell you, you should know about the history of the project. This project was given to the people who were responsible, Dr. Suresh Kumar and Dr. Rajagopal, approached almost every architect in Kerala, at least in Calicut, saying that they have a dream project to be done. And they said most of the architects were not understanding the dreams of the clients. Clients is Dr. Rajagopal. This is the Pain and Palliative Care Society in Calicut. Finally, one of the architects was able to do the project, understood the concept. So one architect, I don't want to name the architect, is quite a famous architect. But when the and the architect also came to know that the clients, this is what the clients wanted. But the architect demanded a very high fees from the client, and the client could not afford the fees. So they could not go with that architect in Calicut with this project. So that's how, Mammootty did some fundraising for this project, and he was the chief patron of the palliative pain clinic or the palliative care society in Calicut, which was the pioneering institutions in the country, Dr. Rajagopal and Dr. Suresh Kumar. And Dr. Suresh knew about, used to come and meet Mammootty in Chennai because Mammootty is the patron. So knew about my work a little bit, but he has seen Mammootty's house is very different. And he knew. So Mammootty didn't call me. Dr. Suresh got my number and called me directly and said, will I be interested in doing such a project in Calicut? I said, yes, because this was one of the dream things. My dream project was always to do a retirement community project and a project for the palliative care. I had done a design of a palliative care institute before this. In 1990s, I did not an institute, a palliative care hospital. I did a design in 1995. It went for sanction, but due to some reasons that could not be constructed by the side of a river. So I worked out my dream, and it was not done. And at that time, my other dream was to do a retirement community project, but now we have done 2 retirement community projects. One has been occupied, the other is just getting ready. Will be occupied in December or January kind of thing. One is coming up in Trivandrum, the other one is in Tamil Nadu. So they just asked, and Dr. Suresh called me over the telephone saying that, can you send me a 1-page note on what your philosophy or concept will be? We are not, this was not a time of Zoom meeting or video calls or anything. Emails has just come into the thing. No, there was no Gmail at that. There was no Gmail at that time. This was might be 2003 or 4. 2002. 2003 or 4, I think. So I sent him an email. The next day he calls me. We like the concept. What is your fees? That was my next question next question was Dr. Suresh asked me. I said, this is my dream project. I will do it free for you. And so the entire institute, 45,000 square feet construction, the entire design, and it was one of the high profile projects which we did. And although we did it free, we got involved in that project to a great extent. We looked at all the minute details of the project. And we could do that because we were at the same time doing for the rich people. So it was a cross subsidy that we did. So we could do for so we had the other projects which subsidized, because I don't come from a rich family. I come from an ordinary middle class family. I don't have my money like to throw into my practice or anything. My office works with very, very, very limited resources, even now. Because if you just try to do CSR or some of this thing, you will never be able to make money. I'm not saying that I've never made money, but still, see, if you are ethical, it is difficult to make money by doing this profession. But general public impression as youngsters, once you start practice, you will make money. You have to just understand only 1% of the architects is making money. 99% doesn't make money. And with the corona, the situation is even worse. If you are practicing, you will know how difficult it is to make money. So this thing, how difficult it is to get money from the clients, that is another difficulty. I can take a class on it sometime, how to get money from the clients. Because the last installment, many of my friends say, never comes. This is the situation. Anyway, don't get discouraged, you youngsters. You don't worry about it. Just try to, I'm just telling. And so this is, at that time, or always we are able to do a part of our work as CSR projects, or we are able to do for those worthy causes. So this comes, and this is what we designed in the project. You can see the building. And there are two parts of the building. One is the institutional part with the outpatient department and classrooms, because this within the medical college campus, but an independent entity, Institute of Palliative Medicine. So there are the offices, training centers, all those things. So all those in the rooms are there. And then there is the inpatient department, which consists of the bedroom, patients' rooms and all those things. Then there are the staff quarters, guest house, canteen, kitchens, all these facilities are there. So it's like a 45,000 square feet of campus, which has been built at that time as part of it. So this is another view of the thing. Money was, there were not much money. The idea was to build maximum. So we use a lot of jalis in many places. And you can see the difference in the layout. So the institutional part is having a scale is different. The residential part, the scale is very different. Because one of the interesting thing which I want to tell, I did not have much of an idea. I make a site visit to Calicut. I meet Dr. Suresh and Dr. Anil, Dr. Chitra, Dr. Rajagopal, etc. And they take me I went to the site in the morning. And and I said that I want to sit with the team. I told both the doctors, Suresh and Rajagopal, that I would like to meet the entire team to see the pulse of how the hospital is to be designed. You normally in a client, I'm just trying to give how you approach a project. You sit with the top one or two people in the project and design the project. So I said, I would like to meet the entire team. And by the time I could meet the entire team, the OP, they were functioning from the medical college campus, because there were patients, they were coming into the medical, from the part of the main medical college. So, in a government medical college, the kind of patients are huge in long queue for the patients. So all the patients, the doctors go for lunch at 2 o'clock and 3 o'clock. People don't realize it when some patients, this is the status of our medical colleges. So by the time I met them, it was around 3:30. So I met the doctors, I met the health workers, I met the nurses, I met the driver, I met the office boys, and there were some volunteers already working. So there were some 30, 40 people working in the set. My question to them, the first question I said was that, in a palliative hospital, people spend the last 15 days of their life in a hospital like this. So that is what they do. So my question to them was that if you want to spend last 15 days, what kind of space you would like to have? This was my question. And none of them said that they want to have a hospital. I mean, although they were working in the healthcare workers, they said they don't want to spend last 15 days of their life in a hospital. So I asked them, then you don't want to, where do you want to spend? They said, we want to spend our time in a home, in our house. So I mean, this is required because they had to undergo various procedures and various things. So I said, then let us design a hospital which doesn't look like a hospital. That was where I started my concept of this hospital. Let us design a space which doesn't look like a hospital. Now, what makes you think about a hospital? I mean, I remember when I was a child, when I'm 5 years old or 6 years old, I have to go and meet the pediatrician if I have fever. I go and meet the pediatrician, go to the clinic, and reach there say, at 5 o'clock. By the time I meet the pediatrician, it will be 6:30 or 7. My mother will be with me, and you don't know you are not in a position to sit because you are sick. There is no place to lie down, but you are forced to wait, and it's a long wait. And in the veranda of the hospital or outside, or veranda of the clinic or outside the clinic. And this is what happened. This is what I experienced. So I said, let me design a hospital where people have places to sit and lie down, even if they are sick. That is one of the things which I said. And I remember when my mother was, I mean, my mother passed away when I was 11 years old. I remember seeing her in her deathbed in a government, I mean, Trivandrum Medical College Hospital, where there are 23 patients on one side of the ward, and there are 23 patients on the other side of the ward. She was lying down, and she was 15 days she spent in her deathbed or the last stretch, and what she could do was only to look at the ceiling. She could not look at the. So I said, here I will design a hospital where every patient can look out. They can see whether it rains or whether the birds are there. They can look out into the greenery. So even in the outpatient room where the doctor gives an injection, I try to make sure that they look out. So none of the rooms are closed. Every room as part of the, every patient who lies down in a bed is able to look out through a window. I try to make sure that it is happening, which I think is very, very important. I create a place, I've seen in places where when your close relatives are in a sinking or dying, however rationalist you are, what religion you belong to, I've seen people coming, Hindus and Muslims coming and praying in a Christian chapel because most of the Christian missionary hospitals has a chapel attached to it. You don't think whether it's a temple or you don't think about religion. And this I've seen. So I just wanted to create a quiet room where uh, uh, where a Bible will be kept, Gita will be kept, a Quran will be kept, but no other religious thing where people can come in. We called it a quiet room. We designed a room for it. We designed a playroom because children are, there are a lot of child patients who have cancer. I mean, you should go and see the cancer hospitals. You will see a child who is 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old. I mean, the numbers are less. Their mothers are there, 40-year-old, 45-year-old. And we wanted to create a place where a cancer patient is able to spend time with their child. We want a child-friendly hospital, or at least a room where the cancer patient, mother or father, can play with their child who is 3 years old or 5 years old. So we just try to create a place where it doesn't look like a hospital. And that is what we wanted to create. So, and in a hospital, when you, I mean, many of you might have been, when your grandfather or grandmother or somebody is ill or uncle is ill, you will find that in a critically ill hospital, every day somebody will die in a hospital. And you will see that it's a very, very difficult scene. And even if you are in a single room in a pay-ward hospital and you know somebody has died, you will finally suddenly find somebody crying because, and then you know that the people, and you know who is critically ill, and you know that I mean, you will say that person will not see the light of the next day. I mean, that's the kind of thing. So here, just we wanted such a scene to be, because here 15 days, 48 beds are there, and we did not want people to, for no 48, 54 beds are there, 48 are general ward, or and there are 6 rooms which are, no, 4 rooms which are private rooms. And the people who are getting private rooms is not because they paid more money or they pay a higher rent. No. This hospital was a hospital where the doctors never put on their overcoats. You know, when they put on the overcoat and the way, I mean, I see, I mean, my wife is a doctor, my daughter is a doctor, medical doctor. And you find that when they put on the overcoat and you see that there's somehow some kind of things come. I've seen some kind of little bit arrogance building in a different way. I mean, there are many who doesn't have the arrogance, but some kind of thing, the way they walk, every body language, everything will change. So here in this hospital, I could see Dr. Rajagopal and Suresh and all their assistants never used to wear their overcoats. I think that still will be there in the new hospital, even all these things, which is very, very important to do it. I mean, that kind of affinity. So the doctors have a concept, and as a designer, your role is to complement or make what the doctors think to make it even much better. So we just gave a solution to them, saying that why can't we have a special room? So these 4 rooms, individual patients, single rooms were built for patients who have a lot of pain and they start crying or making sound. Some of the wounds are smelling, then they are shifted, or some of the people who are going to die are being shifted to this. So even created a separate exit where a where a dead body, if somebody dies, the hospital doesn't know about it because it is very, very sad. Because you have to understand, ഇന്ന് ഞാൻ നാളെ നീ, this is one of the titles of the old poems. I think it's written by Shankarakurupu, G. Shankarakurupu, our Jnanapid award winner. So that kind of situation in a hospital is bad. So we just wanted to change that situation. So we decided that the patient will be shifted to a place towards the last 1 or 2 days of his death. So then the question which was raised was that if she shifts the patient there, then the patient will think that I'm going to die in the next 2 days. Then the doctor said, we will try to take care of it. We will randomly shift, and then people will not feel that. So actually what we did, we created two or four rooms, which is like that. I mean, where they'll be taken to the last, and then they will not be taken through the normal exit. Nobody will see them, the dead body being taken. It is a slightly separate. So all these minute details, which we planned as part of the hospital complex, so the institute complex, and that is what is happening. There are plenty of seats where to sit. So one of the things casually mentioned is that people are wandering everywhere. The patients are wandering everywhere in the hospital. And I said that that's the way the hospital is designed for, because they should not feel alienated. We did not choose expensive fixtures. I mean, when I was asked to design, I asked Dr. Suresh and Dr. Rajagopal that, is there any project I can visit of something like this, palliative care, so that I can get an idea? And I've heard about a similar center which has come up in Bangalore much before this. And I asked them, can I go and see that project? What do you think? They said, if you want to see a hospital the way it should not be designed, go and see it. Go and see that palliative care center. We don't want a hospital like that. I never went and saw that hospital, which is done in Bangalore even before this, this project was done. So we wanted to create a hospital where the ordinary person doesn't feel. We gave tiles only for the toilets. We never gave the tiles along the thing. And what we decided, let us choose a finish where the patient, in a government medical college hospital, the patients who come from the lower strata of the society, so they should not feel anything alienated from these hospitals. We created a lot of courtyards, a lot of built-in spaces, the nature, the trees. I mean, there was a barren land which was handed over to us. This is a photograph taken 10 years ago. Now it was even grown wilder, and you can see the different colors. We gave colors. Hospital. Why? I don't know why hospitals are white. We have just given all. There are 8 clusters of inpatient block. Each cluster, we said ochre cluster, green cluster, pink cluster. Like that, each cluster was called by a different name, in link with the colors. That is what we try to do. So, and we brought in natural light. Natural light can cure. We brought in verandas. And so each of the areas, you don't see people, because I've taken these photographs when most of the people were not there. So you can see right at the beginning of the construction stage. So we use all kinds of colors, made it colorful. We brought in arches, we brought in built-in seats, and that's what we did. And I could see that the training centers were highly used. And this is a patient which is there. Even after the inpatient block was opened, there was still some construction going on. The staff quarters were built at the last. The guest house was built at the last. So I made, during one of my trips to Calicut to see the site visit, I reached Calicut very early in the morning, and I got ready and reached the site at around 7:30. And so I said, let me make a visit to the hospital which was being opened. And I just walked into this patient's room. I don't remember his name. He was in his wheelchair when I visited him early in the morning. He doesn't know who I am, because I'm just sitting with. I did not make this tour with the doctors or nurses or anybody. I was just wanted to see, because the engineers at the site were there. So I asked this patient, how do you feel after being in the hospital? And his answer straight was that half my illness is gone after I came to the hospital. And that is what a hospital should do. And here it's not the hospital administrators' requirements or hospital directors' requirements. Who are the users? And their requirements have to be taken into account. And that is how the project has to be very successful. There is a TV room. We couldn't afford the TV in each of the wards. So if they want to see a TV, they have to come into a TV room. The wheelchair access, and you can is there. And we try to, as I said, every area was a lot of courtyards. There are some more than 30 courtyards in this hospital building, not 1, 2, or 3 or 4. Small courtyards we did in the house. And we used a lot of jalis, because the cost of construction could be brought down. There was not much money to do the construction, and any money which could be saved could be used for buying the equipments in the hospital. In many cases, a lot of money is spent on the buildings, but not on the equipments. So we just very, very careful. And one of the other things which I've seen in the hospital is that, it was inaugurated on 2003, 21st January, and Kuti Krishnan is a patient, cancer patient. And after this was inaugurated by him, he would have left this world in 2 weeks or less than a month. And the major funding was given by a UK charitable trust. I met Mr. Davis, who was the major trustee. He used to make 2 visits or something during the construction. And my name was also put right at the entrance. And first time my name is inscribed on my store. After this, it has happened many times. And this was not suggested by me at all. I was surprised when I went for the inaugural function. I was surprised to see that my name was inscribed on the stone. You had to work with the clients. You had to work with the users. And if you do a genuine job, you will get projects, and people will always respect you. And you will never become outdated. And this is an overall panoramic shot of the Institute of Palliative Medicine. What I try to give is that what are the considerations which goes which normally architects doesn't speak about this aspect of the design. Of course, it is not just, you can't just make the architecture more human. That alone is not enough. I did not talk about the other dimensions of architecture, but architecture is multi-dimensional. It has political dimensions, economic dimensions, social dimensions, cultural dimensions, psychological dimensions, and there are a lot of physical requirements to be satisfied. Now, the biggest challenge of the future world is to make it sustainable as well. So there is a lot of these things have to be done. As youngsters, you will get jobs, you will get projects, provided you approach it in the right way. I just wanted to show how I approached my projects in one way. So never complain that we don't get projects. You are trying to compete with that one person. All the one person try to compete. One person is the architects, and you compete within that one person. There are 99% of the people who don't get the services of architect. Try to get that 99%. You will be successful. And you will definitely be able to make a living. And the living that you make will be more satisfying and gratifying. You will live longer, you will live happier. And that is what is required. I mean, that's just if there are any, I'll stop sharing. If there are any questions or anything, I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So, as rightly depicted in your projects, I feel that your projects mirrors the aspirations and achievements of the people. And beyond that, what I felt very remarkable was that without giving emphasis to the build architecture imageability, it was more on meaningful spaces. And the crux lies in the way you have tried to resolve the briefs, or understanding the brief and interpreting it in the very rational manner with participatory involvement of the stakeholders. So I guess that has given more meaningfulness to your projects, which has made it very, uh, you know, you functional rather than just the architecture palette of architectural elements and characters. It all the three projects depicted here has meaningfulness to it. So it was really wonderful listening to you, sir. Now I open the forum to the students to raise certain queries or concerns if they have regarding things that have been shared here.
Hello, sir.
Yeah.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, sir. My name is Mohammed Shafa. First of all, I'm very much happy and blessed to hear this talk from you. And I must admit that by the end of this talk, I'm a very big fan of your philosophy and your design and everything. And now I'll move on to my question. In the last semester, we actually, in the design, we did a documentation project about Malabar Special Police, and we researched and studied about the Malabar, and we came across Chairman Juma Masjid and all. And when I went through your website, I saw that one of your in the coming soon session that you are doing the conservation project of Chairman Juma Masjid, and the project was really interesting, the design and all. So my question is that in architecture schools, we are taught to design from scratch, but not to redesign. So, what is the importance and what all should we consider while doing a conservation project?
See, the principles are the same. As I told you, I never learned design because I never studied in architecture school. But I did my master's from UK in 1986, 2 years after I passed out. I mean, I took a degree in civil engineering, I never learned anything in civil. I never worked as a civil engineer even for a single day. I was a very bad student. I just managed to pass. And some of the marks I got might be the lowest in report because that is what, but life is, I mean, getting marks and grades is not a yardstick for success or what you do in the future. But I'm not making a justification for not studying or doing what what with the students, because you are a student community. Uh, uh, so in my master's course, when I studied conservation, I mean conservation studies, which was my master, it was one of the best courses in the world. We had students from 17 countries, one of the top rated courses at that time, and where we had to design buildings in a historic context, looking at the materials, looking at the context. We were taught, we were shown examples. That's how, I mean, you can say some like kind of learning which I learned is during that course. Because I worked 9 months with Baker, I learned a lot of things at that time. But when I left Baker after working 9 months with him, I've never thought that I'll be able to design even a 250 square feet house. That was my state of mind. Even many of you, after doing studying for 5 years architecture, many people don't know, are not confident enough to design even a small house. So that was my case. So working 9 months with Baker. So in conservation, the principles are the same. That's how we were taught. The materials you try to do. We were asked to design in tune with a historic context. That's how we are taught. So when you do a building, the design will be uh, magnificent or extraordinary, but the context is important. For example, I'll give you as if time, you are not worried too much, isn't it?
It's not a problem. It's not a concern.
Okay.
You can please go ahead.
Just tell. See, for example, Chairman Juma Masjid. You might have seen the design. Those who have not seen the design can go to my website. There are 1 or 2 articles, and the project is going on. That basement below the ground mosque, which we have suggested, work is going on. You might be able to just Google or go to in my website itself, I mentioned once. So I've designed a mosque which is below the ground for the project. And we used we did not want to use the typical Persian elements of architecture. What the mosque that you see it in India or in Kerala, India as well, what you see is with the minarets and domes, which is more of a Persian style. So we did not want a mosque. I discussed with the mosque authorities. We just wanted to have a different style, but we wanted to use there is a Islamic architecture that is definitely a stream, and we wanted to use the principles of Islamic architecture and then do the design. That's what we tried to do. And I gave the design. The mosque authorities agreed with the design, and then they said they will raise the funds. And once the when the design was over, I'm based out of Chennai. I just don't go to Kerala very often. So I thought the mosque authorities is in the process of raising funds for the mosque. So I did not hear from them for about 1 year, perhaps. I did also 8 months, I don't remember. One day I received a call from Mohammed Said. Dr. Mohammed Said is a surgeon, he's the president of the mosque authority. He calls me and tells me that, Benny, can you come to the mosque? We'll have a meeting to discuss. So I said, next time I come to Kerala, I'll come to the mosque. So I made some site visit. I reached the mosque at around 6 p.m. because site visits are over. And when I came, I found that whole lot of people, the entire board members or the committee members are there. And the president is sitting at one end of the table. Next to that, there was a vacant chair where I went and sat. And the president just showed me a book or a presentation sheets in which another architect has done the redesign of the mosque. You understand that? I worked on this project and another architect has done. And the president was apologetic. Dr. Said was apologetic, saying that we went for funding. There is one person promised funding, a substantial amount. But he said that his architect should be used. It was a kind of, I don't want to tell who the architect is. You will all know the name because you are in Kerala. And so he said, we couldn't say anything and see the design which this person has done. See, our office, we never concentrate on presentations. We concentrate on the design because the extra effort in paying money to get the presentation and walkthroughs done, we don't believe in it. So we just left it. So we did. It was a nicely made presentation. It is very similar to mine thing, but the difference in major concept was that I had suggested a mosque below the ground, and what the other architect has done was to do a 5-story mosque behind the traditional mosque, because existing mosque had the now the mosque doesn't have minarets and domes. All those have been demolished. Work is going on. But before that, when before the district conservation work started, there it has minarets and domes, which has been added in the 1960s. It had some steel truss and concrete roofs, which has been added in 1990s, etc. That is what has happened. So, so this architect has designed, beautifully presented. He has added a 5-story mosque with all the Islamic feature elements, the kind of architecture which is coming up in many of the mosques you can see. And they asked me, what do you think about the design? That was the question, because in 99% of the cases, if such an I can talk about my experience in 99% of the cases, the client will never bother to talk to you. But here at least, that is the greatness of the Jamaat committee in inviting me and talk to me and tell and discuss the design with me. And their thing was that, we got this design, what do you think? So, and it was very nicely presented, I should say that, very nicely presented, much better than me, my presentation which I given to the mosque. And I did not know what to say, because we had worked on that project for 2 years, doing the measure drawing, working out the concept, doing research about Islamic architecture and all those things. And this is what is happening. I knew that the project is getting out of my hands, which was, we do every project with a passion after doing a lot of work. That's the way we work. And so I told the president and the committee that the design is nice. It looks nice. And again, the president said, Benny, you tell a little bit more about it. And I said one thing. I don't know where I got that sentence how I got the strength to talk about that sentence. What I told them was that when your grandfathers built the domes and minarets, there was no awareness about heritage or context. When your parents added the concrete and the metal truss roofs in the 1990s, there was no awareness about heritage or conservation or those things. But in 2015, if you try to do it, generally we talk about heritage and conservation and all those things. And I told them, I have nothing against the design, but the context has to be looked at. The setting has to be looked at. 5-story mosque coming closer to a heritage mosque destroys the context and the setting. I said my objection is to that. All these typical Jamaat committee members sitting there, everybody is sitting quiet. Pin drop silence for 2 minutes. Pin drop silence. That a word, if you want to see, it is at this occasion. Nobody is talking. You can listen to even every leaves moving from shaking, or that could be done. After 2 minutes, the president, Dr. Saif, stood up and said that my opinion is that we should go with Benny's design. And my opinion is that we should not listen to the funders. We will decide what we should do. This happened in 2015. Now, 2019, the foundation stone of the renovation or the restoration of the mosque happened according to my design. And 4 years it took because they had to raise the funds. It was not easy. With the 2015, if they're gone with the other design, they will have to raise funds from 5 people. And at that time, the president said, we will do the renovation of the mosque, collecting money from all over Kerala. And that is what we will be doing. So this kind of thing. So the context, and this is what we are taught in conservation, how to design according to the context. So, but the context and the setting is very, very important, even for a completely new building. That is what I do. But one more point I would like to make clear, when I take the human dimensions into account in my design, I take the sustainability aspects also into account. I take into account the functional requirements also into account. I take into the cost of the project also into account. I look at the comfort of the occupants also into account, whether it is thermal comfort or physical requirements. The job of a designer is to make sure that all these aspects are combined together in the best possible manner. Of course, I look into the elevations as well, because my buildings, people like my elevations. That's why I'm successful, or people come to me because people like the elevations that we do. So you have to take all these aspects into account. That is the job of a designer, not to create landmarks and magnificent signature buildings. No, we have to consider all the, you are successful when you consider all these aspects. And 20 years down the line, 25 years down the line, people say that the buildings which you have done is nice. And that is the best award that you can get from anybody, anywhere, anybody. Or that is what uh, I'm practicing for the last 35 years. I'm still planning to practice for another 30 years. And this is what I would like to do. I enjoy what I'm doing, and I'll continue to do these things.
Thank you, sir. That again was a really inspiring, side-provoking words from you. And sir, I have just one more single question. That is, we heard about Laurie Baker through words and text and all, but we didn't meet him in person and all. So you got the tutelage from Laurie Baker, sir. So we want to know from you, like about him, like how was his design approach and everything. For example, like if we say about Jeffrey Bawa, we hear that he used to go to the site and stays there and work. Similarly, is there something unique to Laurie Baker, sir?
See, I learned architecture, basic lessons of architecture from Laurie Baker. As I said, I worked only 9 months under him. I never worked under anybody after that. So my training is 9 months. I never studied architecture, as you have studied 5 years of architecture. But I've been doing projects from 85 onwards. And he was a great visionary. His designs were, forget about the cost effectiveness or this thing, his designs were amazing. It was very, very creative. Cost effectiveness was one dimension. And I would like to talk about his approach some other day. I mean, about this. Oh no, there is two. There are two. One talk, Laurie Baker and his vision on sustainability. I've given a talk, and it's in YouTube. You can just type Benny Kuriakose and Laurie Baker or something like that. You will reach that YouTube video which I given. So I don't want to elaborate. He was a great visionary. He was much ahead of his time. When people were not talking about sustainable architecture, he was talking about it. He did not coin that word, but he was talking about sustainable architecture. And I was very lucky to work with him. I was the fourth person to work with him. He was not famous when I joined him in 1984. That is why I became the fourth person. The first person is Gerard Dupona, who is quite famous in Goa. I was the fourth person. After that, a whole lot of people worked with him because he became famous. But I was very lucky to work with him because I could get that personal touch when he was not that famous. But at some point, I decided to see, when you do follow somebody, you follow his footsteps. You become a follower. So in 1991, I had some confusion in my practice, various reasons. And I decided that I should be, in fact, 1991, I quit architecture because various reasons. And that is when Mammootty called me to do his house. So I could approach his house because I was quitting, I was doing, because I took up that assignment. So I did not follow Laurie Baker strictly in that project because I said I will have to work out at something. I will have to take it to the next step. And I tried to merge Kerala architecture, Laurie Baker style or techniques with what I experienced during those 8 years of my career before that, because I started working with Laurie Baker in 1984. And from then onwards, I never had to look back. So what the kind of buildings I do today is, you can see my website. Many of the projects are not in the website, but still, I mean, is a huge transition or transformation which happened in me. I tell all the architects working with me that you should not follow me, get inspiration from me, and work out a pathway of yourself. If you follow me, you'll become a follower. But if you make a path of your own, you will become a leader. And I want you to become a leader. This is what I tell my architects. My son is an architect. This is what I told my son as well. So, that is the way. That's the way. So Laurie Baker was a great man, truthful, sincere. I mean, Gandhian, uh, all those things. So it is a bit difficult to answer in a short time. The question you asked, I will be able to talk about full day about him. That's the kind of so many stories I can tell. So I mean, each story carries a message. But I will tell it some other time.
Sure, sir. Thank you for sharing your insights.
Can we have any other queries quickly? We have already, I mean, sir has given us a lot of time. It's almost 2 hours.
Any other questions? I think, I mean, one of the problems with the Indian students, they don't ask many questions. Anyway.
Anyway, sir, it was very informative. I guess they would have been able to get a lot of information from your 3 presentations. And as well also, the main takeaway I would feel is the way a brief has to be understood and how it has to be interpreted so that the design evolves in a very standardized process with a human touch. And as you mentioned, various other factors like sustainability, cost effectiveness, the building materials and so on, which has to be given due consideration so that the project has a holistic outlook rather than just a landmark iconic build imageability. So indeed, sir, it was very wonderful listening to your wise words. And I hope all the audience who are part of this webinar would definitely have something very important to take away with them as they leave the session today. Thanks a lot, sir, personally, as well as from Alsana Group of Institutions. Thank you, sir.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for giving me this opportunity.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you. Then. Can I leave?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Definitely, sir. Thank you. Thanks once again.